All right, we're going to get started here. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Las Vegas, and hopefully you're having a great time in Las Vegas today. Great trip this week, and I'm excited to be talking to you today. My name is Michael McKenzie. I'm the GM for Industrial IoT and robotics at AWS. So I lead the engineering teams, the product teams, things like that. They're doing industrial IoT, robotics, industrial automation, real-time monitoring, things like that. So nice to meet you all. Nice to see you today. Thanks for joining my session. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the shifts that we're seeing and some of the lessons that we're learning. I'm really lucky that I get to sit at the nexus of customers from every sector of the economy doing digital transformation and using IoT to augment their architectures to create business outcomes. And because of that, I get to see what works in a smart building and maybe apply that over to an oil and gas sensor situation. We get to see what big manufacturers are doing across automotive and chemical manufacturing, and we can apply some of their innovations back over to other sectors of the economy as well. So we're really lucky here that we get to see all the different projects and all the things that have worked and some of the things that haven't worked. And I'll talk to you today about that stuff. Hopefully you can get some tips and tricks about how customers are doing this very successfully, some of the things that are working for them, and some of the products they're using to make that journey possible. And the reason is that digital transformation is creating this huge paradigm shift across every sector. It's a technological shift, it's a different way of thinking, and often we see companies coming to us saying, the C-level is talking about digital transformation, but the shop floor person doesn't really know what that means or what to achieve with that. So there's a lot of difficulty in deciding, what are the business outcomes that we're wanting to achieve with digital transformation? Why are we doing this? How is it going to benefit us? We think we kind of know that we want better remote operations. We think it can probably help us with operational efficiency, things like that. But really understanding it is actually pretty difficult, and then implementing it can be very intimidating. And it really is, impacting everything across every sector that we have. In the early days of IoT, we used to just draw on the whiteboard. We would draw a device, and we would draw an arrow, and we would say, here's the cloud, and we're going to connect all these devices on-premise up to the cloud. And that's going to be IoT, and it's going to solve all the world's problems. And that was the very early days. I was a solution architect doing industrial automation at that time, doing a lot of connected dashboards and things like this. But IoT didn't really deliver on the promise of Industry 4.0, as you probably know, in those early days. So we started looking at it as an entire industry, and we said, okay, well, what's the benefit that we're getting? Well, hey, we've got all this data up here. How about we do big data analytics, right? So we shifted from drawing that device, arrow, cloud, to then writing the word deep learning and analytics. And we thought, all right, perfect, we'll solve it with that, right? We started generating more dashboards and more low-code, no-code kind of solutions. And those are great, and those are starting to deliver value to us. But where IoT and where digital transformation has really evolved to now is looking at it and saying, that's great, what lessons have I learned, and how does that help me achieve my business outcome? But now how do I close the loop from being connected, getting all that data, being able to analyze that data, learn new lessons, and close the loop back to the process, actuate control, give better advice to our operators, maybe even putting an algorithm in the loop so that we can respond to the real-time situation on a live site much, much quicker. So really, it's that whole close the loop paradigm that we're getting to, and we now have all the technology that we need to get there, which is great. So IoT has really evolved over the last number of years. But digital transformation is still a big challenge. Again, we have multiple actors along that value chain. Even when everybody kind of agrees, yes, we should modernize, yes, we should do this digital transformation, because we're going to get huge benefits out of it. We're going to have remote access. We're going to have a better way to close that loop and create those efficiencies. It's still really challenging to drive these projects and to drive them all the way through to completion. We see a lot of long proofs of concepts because of this, right? We get technology focused, we think, this will solve the problem, we start putting these things in place, but it takes a long time to start seeing that value, and it takes a lot of refinement, and it takes that iterative process to really start seeing that business value come through. So it is challenging. It's not that simple. It's not as simple as throwing a switch. But we have a lot of experience with customers doing this very, very successfully. Like I said, I'm really lucky to get to sit right in that nexus between multiple industries, some using wireless sensors to augment their existing and aging infrastructure. We can take those wireless sensors that are used for detecting open parking spots in buildings, and we can apply them to oil field and to pipelining to detect leakage and to detect other things that are going on. So we've got all these great kind of cross-sector initiatives. One company that we worked with, Hilcorp, has 20,000 well sites, and they've created this solution to give them a better single source of truth for better managing their emissions and reducing their environmental footprint. We've taken some learnings from that over to other industries. We're working with Carrier on their cold supply chain. Carrier is one of the companies that was tasked with transporting vaccines safely during the pandemic. And so you can imagine cold supply chain management really, really mattered for getting these vaccines safely from one place to another. So a lot of sensing, a lot of understanding how the product is moving, things like that. We've also got Yara, who's working very successfully building out their product quality initiatives. Yara is also using this for predictive and preventative maintenance. So they've connected up the data story of their systems to try to get a much better, more deeper view into everything that's going on across their 210 sites. We've got another company, Coca-Cola, in Turkey. They're the 6th largest bottler in the region. They've used our Edge framework to capture data locally and kind of lower that overall cost to cloud, but then using this to drive their sustainability initiatives to help them reduce their energy footprint. Coming out of that real-time monitoring system, Coca-Cola has managed to reduce their energy footprint by about 20%, and better yet, their water footprint by about 9%, which you can imagine for a bottler, that's a really big deal to save on the water like that. So companies are doing this very successfully. They're doing this by going through the steps that I'm going to talk a little bit about and making sure that their business outcomes are really well known and achievable. So we've seen these challenges across multiple sectors, like I said, but we're also really lucky, we're really blessed that we have one of the world's largest logistical supply chains in our backyard, and that's, of course, Amazon. We've been working with Amazon for a number of years. They've got some pretty significant investments. Today, globally, they have more than 200 facilities with fantastic robotics. The fulfillment center teams are really top-notch at building these great robotics solutions. There's now 500,000 robotic drive units, and I have to check my notes on that one every time to make sure I'm not misspeaking, but 500,000 robotic drive units across these 200 sites. And customers have purchased hundreds of millions of Alexa-enabled devices as well, which is all coming together as these great IoT technologies and these great tests of scale and these great tests of orchestration and in robotics, things like that. To deal with the scale, Amazon actually does use our IoT services. They use IoT Greengrass to prevent latency. They use IoT Core to capture all the data coming out of the fulfillment centers on these robotic applications. They've done a huge array of automated applications like palletizers, warehouse management, robotic arms, and robotic guided vehicles, and more. They've done this to reduce the human impact, to create safety, but they've also had a significant impact as a result of doing this on their fulfillment costs and their speed while reducing their environmental impact. So we're really lucky as a team that we kind of have this living lab near us. and a great source of information where people are doing this every single day in those fulfillment center robotics teams. And we get to learn from them, we get to package that, and we try to make that more generalized for the greater good. Now, some customers are still asking, you know, what's the best path to industrial transformation? And I'd say, there are a number of considerations, but probably first and foremost is what I mentioned at the beginning, understanding what business outcomes you want to achieve and when. This sounds pretty obvious, and I think some of you in the audience are kind of like, yes, Captain Obvious, why wouldn't I know that? But it's surprising how often it's really much more ambiguous than you might think. Particularly when we start driving these large digital transformation initiatives across a company, and we start talking about connected and remote applications and things like this, but then we also start talking about, yes, but which one to start with first? What does remote access look like for that? What am I trying to monitor that I'm not already monitoring today? How will the cloud, or how will these deeper analytics help me learn things that I can't already learn from on-premise systems, right? So understanding, what is the order of priority on these business outcomes? Is it energy and sustainability to help meet those goals? Is it remote access? Is it part of your quality improvement program? Is it part of operational efficiency? Making sure that the business goal is known the entire way through the chain, from C-level to shop floor, making sure that everybody along that chain can articulate the goal, articulate the priorities, and the order of priorities on that is so key. Why? It helps us really quickly assess what technologies we should use to achieve that goal. Without trying to eat the entire elephant at once, we can, really quickly hone in on, here's the technology that's gonna help. Here's what's gonna give you the quickest bang for the buck, and reduce that amount of time on proof of concept down to weeks rather than months, right? So understanding the business outcome, making sure everybody's aligned, job number one. Number two is really understanding what level of flexibility and customization you need for your operations. And again, this might sound simple, but is surprisingly hard. This is a combination of saying, how much is going to be bespoke to my actual situation, my actual process, and how much can I get away with that's much more generalized that other processes, other plants are using, other segments are using, right? So to understand this, we also have to look at things like, what is the level of in-house skills that we have? Are they highly technical and able to build their own IP? Are they, cobbling together multiple building blocks to make something entirely bespoke? And we have then the technical staff? Or is it much more on the other side where we need turnkey, we need something that is just gonna come in and just work from day one? Or is it something in between? Next, security. And really, we should probably have security as the start. But when we start designing for, what is the solution going to look like? What business outcome are we trying to achieve? We need to really think about, how are we securing this? What does security mean in this situation? What is that shared responsibility model going to look like between the cloud provider and the shop floor, and understanding exactly how we're going to design this to make sure that we are fully secure. This has to be job one. It's a major part of the start of the project. It shouldn't be part of the middle. It needs to be right up front. And finally, the pace of change. What we hear a lot is, I want to design something that's going to evolve over time. And we don't know what that evolution is going to look like yet. And that's true. The pace of change is enormous. So understanding that this is the first change you're going to make, not the last change you're going to make, is a really important mentality. And that has to be propagated through the entire organization to make sure that everybody knows this is the first thing we're going to do, but it's going to continue to evolve. And we want to build for the long term without overcomplicating. So again, these are some of those core strategies. Now, we've got a lot of great solutions, like I mentioned, and a lot of great building blocks. In fact, AWS has more than 200 building blocks that are available for industrial IoT that can be used to build these great solutions. So again, it's going to come down to, what skills do I have in-house? Can my people pick that up and build their own solution? And how much of this should be bespoke to my business. We also have these great turnkey solutions on the other end that I mentioned, and we've got great partners who can deliver from our solutions catalog everything from end-to-end asset management to end-to-end data management to end-to-end environmental sustainability solutions. We have lots of partners in that catalog who can do these things. We also have some of our own services like AWS IoT Edge Sitewise, and we've got Amazon Monitron, which is an end-to-end monitoring solution as well. So we've got great partners and we've got great turnkey solutions, but these are then, again, that end-to-end, very little customization kind of solutions. And then we have the middle sector here, and this is what we call purpose-built solutions. These are things like IoT Sitewise, where we've taken all the data bricks that we need, all the connectivity bricks that we need, all the algorithmic bricks that we need, and we've built them together into a solution that kind of pulls together the connection to the storage, to the data management, and even links out to the AI and the ML to make sure that there's a turnkey, semi-turnkey solution here that is customizable, that you can build against, that we can work with SI partners, we can work with ISVs on, things like that, to provide a certain level of customization, but again, is much more of a purpose-built solution ready to go and should quickly accelerate that time to innovation. So that's sort of how we think about it, and I would say, choosing the right approach here is really core, really critical to your project's success. I mentioned the end-to-end turnkey solutions. This is a big logo slide, of course, but we've got some really great examples in here. Shoreline IoT builds a purpose-built asset performance management solution, a plug-and-play, one-step solution with free RTOS-based solutions, sensors, pardon me. Excellent solution, end-to-end, Shoreline can deploy. Software AG has an application called Trend Miner. This gives advanced time series analytics for operational experts and understanding operational efficiency. Hitachi Vantara has another solution called Lumada. Lumada Manufacturing Insights. That helps manufacturing customers accelerate their digital transformation journey by optimizing machine production and quality outcomes. So lots of great solutions here, and again, available in our partner solutions catalog, but we've got some great partners. So what are customers doing today? Well, I'm pretty excited to talk about IoT Expresslink and a company called Eden. Eden was one of our very first adopters of IoT Expresslink. And they're a great example of assessing the in-house skills again. Eden has embedded developers, and embedded developers aren't often also cloud developers, and vice versa. I was a cloud developer. I can't do anything on embedded. I love those embedded guys. I wish I could do more. So we've developed these sets of libraries that sit on systems on chip and that are available through our partners to be deployed into these solutions, kind of a plug-and-play idea, so that embedded developers can listen on an I/O pin the same way they would listen on any I/O pin and put data and receive data back from the cloud. We handle all of the rest of the networking, we handle all the connection, the identity management, the certificate exchange, everything like that behind the scenes, so that the embedded developer just listens on a pin like they always do and just puts I/O on the pin like they always have. So this is a great product. And what's really cool is this week we actually won Best in Show award for embedded computing designs at Embedded World with IoT Expresslink. This is now GA as of yesterday. We announced this at reInvent, but it's now GA, and great to see that award. We were really humbled by that. Another company you might know about is Lockheed Martin, huge manufacturer. Lockheed employs 114,000 people worldwide and has, they're principally engaged in research, design, development, manufacture, integration, and sustainment of advanced technology systems, products, and solutions. That's a mouthful, but Lockheed is a very advanced customer, so they deserve the mouthful. Pardon me. Lockheed had a really interesting problem. They wanted to optimize their factory operations by connecting up their devices and really start getting that real-time data, really start understanding the data story of their factory. So Lockheed uses IoT Greengrass, IoT Core, and IoT Sitewise to connect their factory devices to the cloud. IoT Sitewise is collecting data from lots of different locations, like the plant floor and other real-time metrics. But let's take a look at Lockheed and hear it directly from them.
We need to build quality products with performance, speed, and total cost of ownership dropping. And to do that, we need to look at intelligent factory frameworks that give us the opportunity to develop those pieces, components, integrate those systems, and deliver to our customer.
We started looking down the road, how do we connect our factories? I was challenged by the CIO at the time to begin looking at how we could connect these devices, just gather all the data, and then we'll begin to figure out what the data tells us. So working with AWS, we decided to hook up Greengrass, IoT Core, and begin to just grab everything that came off the machines and pump them into our data lake. We had to be able to protect that data as we're grabbing it from the shop floor, and then be able to use it in the context that could help us understand what's happening while we're building some of these very complex systems.
Looking at the intelligent factory framework we wanted to put in place, we discovered that utilizing AWS Greengrass with AWS IoT Core and transmitting into an S3 environment, we really had some interesting opportunities that other services and platforms didn't offer us. With Sitewise, the nice thing is the modeling is flexible and scalable. You can adopt one model to another model and make the copies where you need to make them. It simplifies the process. The cool thing was AWS brought a team of professionals together. They got us in a couple of training sessions. My team was able to pick it up fairly quickly. Within 2 weeks, we were already developing our own hierarchies and functions.
We're just now collecting data, starting to bring it in and visualize it. I think the key is going to be when we really get it into our end users' hands. So we're hoping to get to the point where we give them the dashboard tools, the Grafana tools, and the QuickSight, give them the ability to start playing with the data and then sharing them across the corporation, or at least across MFCs and enterprise. And then once MFC's done, we're sort of like the exemplar for the rest of the corporation in our industrial factory framework.
So what was really cool about this engagement, I remember getting this message saying, we've just successfully connected up the data story for the plant. We've got all the sensor data starting to come through IoT Core. And within minutes, we got a message back saying, oh my goodness, they're already playing with the data in Sitewise, which is so cool to hear. And this is again why we've got at Lockheed a little bit of a mixture, right? We've got some building blocks like IoT Core, IoT device management being used, and they're being used in conjunction with some of the purpose-built services like AWS IoT Sitewise to make sure that those common functions, the things that should just kind of happen and work, are simple to deploy and quick and easy. Now, what's really cool is once you have all these sensor data and you've got this deep analysis going on, we want to be able to create business outcomes again, closing that loop. And Envista is a company that we've worked with here who is really focused on closing that loop with their connected factory framework and creating a fully connected digital worker. And what they've done is they've used, again, these kind of purpose-built solutions, but one of them being AWS IoT TwinMaker to create a digital twin of their environment. Now, Envista had a huge investment in another company that does space scanning called Matterport. And so when we're working with Envista, we wanted to make sure that building a digital twin was really, really easy and not intimidating. So we made sure that anything that the customer has already done, these big investments in space scanning or these big investments in 3D where they may have done this before, that we could just import that and that we could just make that work, overlaying our IoT data in on top of those investments so that they don't have to reinvest, right? There's a lot of legacy systems out there. There's a lot of people who have already tried to build their own digital twin. We want you to do that. We would love to be able to import those assets and make sure that you're still getting use out of your previous investments. So we've really thought that through with TwinMaker. What I love about TwinMaker is we've got the scene composer. We've also got the ability to overlay real-time data. We can overlay real-time alarms. We can ACK alarms. We can turn that back into action, back in the process. We can even flip on the KVS, the Kinesis Video Stream, live data, the live video feed, to understand what's going on in reality. Let's get actual eyes on what's happening out there. So not just the virtual twin, but also being able to look at reality and quickly get a sense of what's going on in the real-time story. Now, we've also been working with the Amazon fulfillment centers on robotics, and I mentioned this before, but what we love about this is this great knowledge that Amazon has in their fulfillment centers, and being able to bring this out and try to generalize this. And this is a company here called AGCO, and what you're seeing on the screen is the very real challenge that when you buy robots, these are AGVs that are moving parts around a tractor factory, when you buy these things from different manufacturers, it becomes really challenging to orchestrate them and make sure that things like intersection management, when they come to the same intersection, which one gets to go? If they're coming from different manufacturers, there's no common orchestration between these robots. So we've created IoT RoboRunner to really tap into that and make sure that we can gather the data from all these different types of robots, do that orchestration management, handle that intersection collision, and make sure we manage that so that customers can quickly set up with multiple vendors. RoboRunner is still in preview, and we've been working with customers in this space for a little while now. We're hoping to get this out to GA before the end of the year, and this should help us build robotics applications much, much quicker. So just to drop into the lessons again, the lessons that I think we've learned over the years from these customers and from all these different engagements, a couple of tips to remember. Really focus on driving towards your business outcomes. That has to be priority one. Make sure everybody on the shop floor, everybody in the middle management, everybody at the C-level can articulate the same goals. This is so important to get an aligned organization. Number two is really consider where your needs fall between the full customization and turnkey solutions. Often it's somewhere in between, but we have that wide spectrum of solutions that we can draw from. And understanding the business goal will also help to show where a solution could be turnkey versus what's going to need to be customized. Part of this is assessing the level of in-house expertise, the resources, the partners you might have, the SIs that you might be working with. Understanding their expertise is going to be really key in picking the right solution and picking the right approach. Design for security from the start. This is not something we layer in after the fact. Security has to be job one on day one. We need to think about how is it encrypted at rest, how is data encrypted in transit, how are we controlling access, how are we managing identity, how are we exchanging certificates, things like this. All of this needs to be designed in from day one to make sure these applications are fully secure. And finally, build for the long term. These solutions have a lot of hooks. They're API-based solutions. They're going to continue to evolve. We're going to continue to evolve these solutions based on the learnings that we get from customers like you, building this in with our partners and understanding exactly what feedback we're getting so that we can continually evolve this. So build for the long term. Think big. Try to figure out where we want to be in the 5-year term, where are we going to be in the 10-year term. How long does something like this need to be supported for? In many cases, it's 10 to 20 years. So build for that long term, think about the security model up front, and make sure your whole organization is aligned around those goals. And that's it. Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoy the rest of the event, and thanks for joining mine. See you.